Actually, I think we're good. So let's go ahead and get started. My name is Greg Blanchard. I run marketing here at Inntopia. Again, thank you everyone for joining us today. The topic today is insurance. And from my perspective, one of the reasons I love working in travel is that travel is such a unique and interesting product. When you buy a pair of shoes, you order them online to get the exact pair of shoes you're looking for, every stitch, every color, every piece of fabric, exactly what you expected. If you're not home, you're still going to get them the next day if they try to deliver again. And travel is just not like that at all, right? Travel is filled with all sorts of uncertainty. And the biggest, which is sometimes kind of wild to remember, is that the biggest source of uncertainty is whether that person will be able to even go on their trip at all. So many things can happen between the time that they book and the time that they would leave. And this is one of the big reasons why Inntopia partners so closely with travel insurance providers. And one of our closest partners over the years is Generali Global Assistance. Today, Rhonda is here from their team to talk about insurance, where things are, where they're going, and most importantly, the fundamental idea of how travel insurance can help you and your business protect your income and build your bottom line. So, Rhonda, I'll turn the floor over to you.
Thank you so much, Greg. Welcome, everybody. I definitely appreciate you all making time to learn a little bit more about what Generali can do to help protect your guest and how to protect your business. As Greg mentioned, my name is Rhonda Bedsalam, and I am the National Account Executive for the West. I've worked with Generali for about a decade now, a little bit over a decade actually, and I'm really proud of the products that we have to offer Inntopia and your business. And so without further ado, I'll go ahead and get started on the presentation. So just a little bit about Generali Global Assistance. We are a global insurance travel assistance provider. We've been in the market for quite some time. Formerly known as CSA Travel Protection was kind of our better known name within the vacation rental industry. And about 12 to 13 years ago, Generali actually purchased us. So Generali has owned the company for quite some time, and over the years we've slowly been rebranding over to that Generali logo. So you'll see that lion to the left there. Generali as a company is actually one of the oldest insurance companies in the world. We actually used to insure the spice trades back in the 1800s. So it's definitely a company that you can trust will always be there for you. We've been around for a very, very long time. We are the vacation rental leader with travel insurance. We have over 30 years experience of that. And we also have very easy integration. So we do have vacation rental solutions that work seamlessly within your booking software. And we also have a full service support team. So what many people don't know is we actually have Generali doctors and nurses that work for our company that can help your guests in the event of a medical emergency, can help make recommendations and talk them through some best courses of action should anything happen. So we do have travel insurance that connects. This is one of the strongest reasons to start working with Generali. We do have a direct feed with Inntopia. So what that means is that when a policy is purchased through Inntopia, the guest is immediately provided with a confirmation of coverage that shows their name, their travel dates, their address, and they're given a policy number. So what does that mean for the guest? That means that they are immediately insured. It means that they have something that is specific to them. Their policy numbers are not delayed. For you, this means that you don't have to mess with monthly reporting. Guests get their plan details in real time. So it makes for a better journey for your customer as well as a better journey for you as the seller of the insurance. So travel insurance. What we're going to do now is just kind of go over what travel insurance does. So travel insurance does two things. It's an insurance coverage and a financial tool for your guests. What that means is that it does help them save money in the event that something goes wrong on their vacation. So say, for example, a guest is traveling to Breckenridge and the roads are closed on the I-70 and they're stuck at the Denver airport. So what our product can do is that it can actually help with any out-of-pocket expenses that the guest could incur during this time, such as any unused nights in Breckenridge. It can help pay for meals at the airport. It can help pay for additional lodging expenses if they have to get a hotel in Denver because they can't make it up to Breckenridge. It can help for Uber, shuttle services, so quite a bit. It definitely does protect the guests in many ways. It also provides them with assistance services, so it provides them access to help in the event that their identity is stolen, for example. If they are driving to your location, it does provide roadside service. And we also have some telemedicine services that we'll discuss, but it definitely does help protect your guest. Okay, so here are some examples of covered expenses. Just as I had mentioned previously about in the event that somebody is stuck at the Denver airport, any sort of additional expenses that could occur in the event of an unplanned travel emergency. But the plan also covers for cancellation. So let's say they never end up going on their trip. So one of the most common reasons that people do buy travel insurance is to make sure that their prepaid non-refundable trip costs are covered. So what can be insured? Quite a bit, actually. Anything that is prepaid and non-refundable is an insurable expense. So what are some examples of that? So of course, any lodging is absolutely something that they would insure. But they could also insure, let's say, any sort of excursions that they're doing if they're prepaid and non-refundable. Ski lift passes for the day, for example, that could be insured as well because it's prepaid and non-refundable. I have seen some less expensive rates for rental cars that if you prepay and they're non-refundable, they're a little bit less expensive. That's also something that could be insured. Okay, so here are some covered events that are covered by the travel insurance. So these are all reasons why somebody could file a claim for cancellation or even interruption. Mandatory hurricane evacuations, perhaps at their primary residence. Road closures is a really big one. If the roads are closed for 6 hours or more and they're unable to make it to the vacation rental or wherever they're headed, then there is coverage for the guest to go ahead and cancel. If they're delayed for that reason as well, then there is protection too. Sickness, injury, and death, including COVID-19, is also a covered reason. So a couple things with COVID. If somebody happens to test positive for COVID-19, and as long as they bought the insurance prior to testing positive or showing any symptoms, then the guest could go ahead and file a claim for cancellation. And that actually includes everybody that's going. So if anybody in the entire traveling party tests positive for COVID, then the entire traveling party could go ahead and cancel. It also covers for non-traveling family members. So let's say my uncle tests positive for COVID, and I want to be here to make sure to take care of him because he's not in the best of health. Even though he wasn't planning on traveling with us, he is a non-traveling family member. So there would be coverage for that. We consider many people as family members. So it's not necessarily anybody that is an immediate family member living in the household. It could be an aunt, it could be an uncle, a grandma, grandpa, stepmom, stepdad, niece, nephew. So quite a wide array of people that it's actually covering. And let's say it's myself and a friend that are going on vacation together, and it's my friend's stepmom that becomes ill. I can go ahead and cancel too and file a claim for cancellation because it is a non-traveling family member of a traveling companion. So all that is built into every single plan. Flight and other common carrier delays are also protected as covered events. So the flight and common carrier delays actually has to occur due to a mechanical breakdown or severe weather. So just always like to make a note of that. A lot of the common reasons why flights are canceled or delayed these days are due to labor shortages. So that is not something that would be protected. But again, if it was due to weather or mechanical breakdown, then there would be protection. School year extension is also another reason for a covered event, and unexpected job loss too. So there is some fine print surrounding the unexpected job loss. The person has to be employed for a year or more with that job. It has to be involuntary. So we encourage our guests to read their descriptions of coverage. Just so you know as well, you would never have to let the guests know any of these nuances of the insurance. Anything outside of how much does the insurance cost, we ask our partners to go ahead and forward those questions over to us. The reason being is that, you have enough on your plate. You don't necessarily need to know all the ins and outs of insurance. We want to be the ones to answer those questions for a few reasons. Number one, we want those calls to happen on our recorded lines. The moment a guest starts asking questions about, hey, is this something that would be covered? Is that something that would be covered? We want to make sure that we dig a little bit on what's going on just to make sure that we answer that question appropriately. The number one reason why people actually end up canceling is due to a medical reason. So we're going to get into it with them as to, okay, well, when did this medical condition start? We'll have when the policy was purchased. So we want to be able to dig in into those questions with the guest. The second thing is we wouldn't want any wrong information to be given on your line, for example. We want to be the ones to answer that and give them the most appropriate answers. So when we're going through all this, just something to keep in the back of your mind. You don't have to know all this if you're selling the insurance. We want to be the experts. You would just facilitate the sale. All this information is just kind of good to know sort of information for yourselves. Okay, so here are some examples of the assistance services I had mentioned. We do have medical and legal referrals and access to 3 doctors and 24 nurses. Those are on-staff nurses. That's due to emergency services. We also have roadside assistance. And so in the event that your guests are driving to your location, we do have towing service, battery jump, flat tire change, fuel delivery, and locksmith services. We also have the identity theft resolution services. So this is actually available for 6 months after the trip starts. So if the guest finds out later that their identity was compromised during their trip, we do have some identity theft resolution services available to them. And telemedicine. So back when I first started working for Generali, and they mentioned that we have this telemedicine services, I just thought it was crazy. It was something I'd never heard of before. I couldn't imagine just phoning into a doctor and having a doctor diagnose me over the phone, or my kids or anything like that, and just phone in a prescription. But now it's commonplace ever since COVID. So we do have that telemedicine access for everybody traveling on the trip. They could call into our telemedicine services, talk to the doctor, let them know what's happening, and the doctor can go ahead and phone in a prescription to the nearest pharmacy. So they don't have to worry about paying their copay for their primary health care coverage. And depending on what the situation is, the copays for the medicine, for example, could be covered by our medical coverage that's built into every plan. Okay, so travel insurance and COVID-19. Always like to throw in a slide on COVID-19 because it is forefront on everybody's minds. There is coverage for COVID-19 sickness, as I mentioned earlier. As long as someone purchases the insurance before showing symptoms or testing positive, then there would be protection. So I always also like to make a note that what sort of tests are covered. Unfortunately, the at-home tests wouldn't suffice for filing a claim. The reason for that is that it doesn't have a name on there, it doesn't have a date, a timestamp. So we would have the guest go get a PCR test, for example, something that we can tie it to them. It shows their name, the time they took it, So that's an important thing to note when it comes to how our insurance would work for COVID-19. But built into every single plan is trip cancellation interruption if they test positive for COVID, travel delay, medical and dental, and we'll get into this a little bit more in the upcoming slides as to what could be covered if they got COVID during their trip. Oops, sorry about that. Okay. Oops. So here we are talking about what happens in the event that somebody got COVID while they were traveling. So let's say a guest starts to feel sick a few days into their trip and they test positive for COVID-19. This is actually a great tool to show your guests that you care about their wellness during their vacation. That's a really big buzzword right now in the travel industry is wellness. So this is just to support that. You could let the guest know, hey, we do offer travel protection. So if the guest happens to test positive for COVID while traveling, they do have access to our telemedicine services. In the event that they need to stay longer or need to go home early, there is coverage for trip interruption and travel delay. So we will help pay for some of those additional accommodations if they stay earlier, or if they want to go home early, then we would help pay for their airfare home or any unused nights at the vacation rental. And this also applies if let's say everybody's on vacation and they find out that somebody back home has tested positive for COVID. So there would be coverage there. Something else to note is if somebody's traveling alone and they are hospitalized for 7 days or more, whether that's due to COVID or any other sort of medical situation, we will go ahead and pay for somebody to fly out and be with that person. So that's another benefit to the travel insurance plan. Again, this is on every single policy. If there happens to be a death in the family, just a few days before they're scheduled to check in, whether that be a non-traveling family member or a traveling family member, then the guest can go ahead and file a claim for coverage too. It is a part of life. As we get older, our parents are getting older, so just something else to perhaps let the guest know when trying to sell the coverage. Hey, you just never know what could happen. And making mention of, as we're traveling, although, nothing may happen to us, something could happen to our extended family that's of older age. So that's just something to mention to the guest. Delayed luggage is also covered too. So let's say the bags are delayed for 24 hours or more. We will help them pay for any sort of essential items. So it's not necessarily going to cover a Louis Vuitton belt or anything like that, but we will provide them with some money to go ahead and reimburse them for the cost of clothes or toiletries and things like that. So why offer travel insurance? As I mentioned before, for your clients, there is COVID-19 sickness coverage, telemedicine and medical assistance from professionals, and it does help travelers save money in the event that they have to lose their vacation investment. Just something else to note too on these insurance policies, medical coverage is also included. So in these ski areas, say for example, somebody is skiing down the slopes, they take a spill, and now they've hurt their knee, for example. So a couple things would happen here. Built into every plan is $25,000 worth of medical coverage. Now, our coverage would be secondary. So what does that mean? What that means is, let's say that guest goes to the emergency room. Now, right off the bat, there is a $150 copay as soon as they walk into that emergency room. And then their primary insurance is going to take care of anything outside of that. Well, that's where we would come in. We would go ahead and reimburse the guest for that $150 copay for the emergency room visit. Now, let's say the guest gets prescribed medication. Here's some painkillers. The guest has to go and pick up that prescription. We would go ahead and pay the guest, reimburse the guest for the cost of the prescription. And also, if the guest needed any sort of additional medical treatment up to a year out of the injury that occurred during their trip, we would cover that as well. So what does that mean? That means in the event that somebody has really hurt their knee during their ski trip and they have to get, let's say, physical therapy for 6 months after the injury, we would go ahead and help and pay for their co-pays associated with that injury. So oftentimes these physical therapy visits are still $20 to $40 each visit for each copay. We would help the guest pay for that. So why offer travel insurance for yourself? As we mentioned, it boosts guest satisfaction. In the event that somebody has to cancel, we've all taken those phone calls where the guest is very upset that their prepaid non-refundable trip cost is in fact non-refundable, and you can't give them anything back and you can't rebook them. With the travel insurance, you can actually provide the guest with a solution. So if they call and they say, I'm so sorry, we're not able to make it. My son twisted his ankle while playing soccer at school. You can say, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry to hear that. I see here that you bought the travel insurance. Here's Generali's phone number. They're going to take really good care of you. And you're pretty much done with that. The guest gets made whole again from us. We provide them with the reimbursement. You get to keep the guest's money, and it protects your booking revenue. So you also earn commission with every single sale. So that varies, and we can chit chat about that. You can follow up with me. We can talk about how much commission is earned. But it does also reinforce your cancellation policy. So I always like to mention this too. So not only does it protect the guest in the event that they bought the insurance, but let's say the guest calls in and they did not buy the insurance and they're calling in to say that they have to cancel. Well, here's an opportunity for you to say, well, sir, I am sorry that, it's non-refundable, but here's where I offered you insurance to protect that investment 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times. So we will provide you with language to include on every single email communication. And every time that guest calls in for any reason at all, you've got their reservation up and they're asking what time is check-in. That's a great opportunity to offer them travel insurance by saying, hey, since I have your reservation up, I noticed that you did not add travel insurance. You can still add it today, and most of our guests do buy it because the weather is so unpredictable or the roads can be unpredictable. Can I add that to your reservation today for X amount? So as I was mentioning before, road closures are protected under the travel insurance. So the coverage is applicable if roads are closed by adverse weather and your guests cannot get to their rental. So some examples of adverse weather: if the roads are closed due to too much snow, slippery roads, if there's an avalanche, that's all protected. If the roads are closed due to wildfires, that's also protected. So it's all built into every single plan too. Even if there's an alternate route, so many of these mountain destinations, there's a direct route that say would take the guests 3 hours, but there's also another route that they could take because that main route's closed, but it's going to take 12 hours to get there. We would never force the guests to make that 12-hour trek. All we would look at is say, was their intended route to their destination closed for X hours or more? As I mentioned before, medical emergencies are covered. So if a guest gets sick or injured while traveling and needs to be evacuated or seek medical treatment, that's all built in too. There is emergency evacuation, so that helicopter lift is already built in. And it's important to note, in a lot of these mountain towns, medical care is much more expensive than it would be in city destinations. So this is indeed a valuable protection for your guest. Okay, so now we're going to move on to damage protection. So what is it and why offer it? So what damage protection does is it is offered in lieu of a security deposit. So a guest can be offered damage protection in a way that they are asked, would you like to buy damage protection for say $70, or would you rather put down a $3,000 security deposit? Now, you cannot bake in the damage protection, so what that means is you can't say that the damage protection has been included with your reservation for $70. The guest does need to opt into it. The reason for that is because it is a regulated product, and Department of Insurance has come out to say that this type of insurance cannot be automatically included. It can't be opt-out. The guest has to opt into it. So what does it cover? So it covers broken dishes, damaged appliances, stained carpets, scratched furniture, kid damage, pet damage, and rekeying. All of these things are protected in the event that the guest has caused these accidental damages. So, what we commonly see are spilled wine or spilled coffee on upholstery or the carpets. We see a lot of damages to glass stovetops. If you allow pets into your unit, and let's say the pet has scratched up the floors, scratched up kitchen cabinets, perhaps scratched up the screen door, then there is protection there. So those are some of the most common reasons that we see damage protection claims. But I always like to give the good, the bad, the ugly. So some of the things that are not protected are things like additional cleaning, because that's not necessarily damage, and violations of rental agreements. So let's say the guest smokes in the unit, for example, and you said absolutely no smoking in the unit, and they burned a hole in the couch. That would not be something that would be covered because it's a violation of the rental agreement. However, if you said, yes, you can smoke on the patio, and the guest burned a hole in the patio chair, then that would be something that could potentially be covered. If you told the guest no pets, and they still brought a pet, then that would be a violation of the rental agreement, and if that pet caused damage, then that's something that would not be covered. However, if it's a service animal, that is something that we could look at potentially covering. So why offer damage protection? A couple of reasons. So for your guests, it does provide them with peace of mind in the event that they are traveling with, say, lots of kids or their pets, and they're nervous if there's going to be damages, and they don't want a large security deposit to be held and risk losing it. They do have the damage protection available to them. They do enjoy it, and they can relax and enjoy their stay. So it's much more convenient. The margins on damage protection are quite large as well. So security deposits don't provide you with any sort of revenue. In fact, they probably take up a whole lot of administrative time to hold those funds and release those funds. So with the damage protection, you're actually making money off of each sale. And as I mentioned, there is quite a bit of money to be made on these damage protection policies. So reach out to me to learn a little bit more about that. And I'd be happy to discuss some pricing options for you. We do have multiple levels of coverage as well. So we have a $1,500 level, a $3,000 level, and a $5,000 level. So, we do have lots of options to best fit your business model. So now that you've decided to sell travel insurance, what do we do to help support your business? So what we have available to all of our partners is the vacation rental insurance toolbox. So with this toolbox, you can log in there and you'll find scripting for phone sales and how to overcome objections. We also have a customized second chance email that you could formulate and send out to your guests. Just a side note, we do offer pre-existing condition coverage as long as the guest buys the insurance by final payment. So we encourage you to keep offering the insurance up until final payment. So we do have some blurbs that you could put onto any sort of email communications that say, hey, if you haven't purchased insurance yet, make sure you give us a call. Want to make sure your vacation is protected. So we do have some prepackaged, already compliant language for you to put on there in this rental insurance toolbox. We also have flyers for guests and selling guidelines for you and your staff. So there is some imagery there that you can choose from. So whatever's the best fit for your market, whether it be flyers that you want to send out in the winter and the summer, we've got different seasons on there too. But we do quite a bit to help support your business. We also have lots of boots on the ground. You know, your account executive for your territory is ready and waiting to come in and do in-office visits. We also have support staff that can do webinars for you and your team too. And I definitely encourage you to take advantage of that. It's all free. And with staffing changes that have occurred so much over the past couple of years, it's always good to do a refresher training and just reminders on what's covered, what's not. Because at the end of the day, you know, an insured guest is better than an uninsured guest. Your revenue is protected, your guest's investment is protected, and you earn commission from each sale. So if you'd like to schedule a refresher training, then just let us know and we're happy to go ahead and set that up for you. And that's all I had for today. Again, my name is Rhonda Betzlaff. I'm the National Account Executive for Generali Global Assistance, and I'm happy to help you out with anything that you may need.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Rhonda. Do you have a preferred email or something that we should share along with this, or just find you on the website, yes, or what's the best?
Yes. I'm sorry, I should have put it on here, but you can reach me at rna@csatp.com.